It's like a distance.
Good evening and welcome to the special meeting of the Common Council. This is a workshop meeting for Charter Revision Commission. Meeting has begun.
Benny.
The meeting has begun. Okay, I'll start again. Welcome to the special meeting of the Common Council. This is a workshop meeting for Charter Revision. It is 6:01. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Burnett,
Present.
Mr. Goldstein,
Here.
Mr. Lopez,
Here.
Ms. Najolski Eichner,
Present.
Ms. Smith,
Here.
Ms. Ayers, Mr. Seed,
Present.
Mr. Wiggins, Ms. Young, Ms. Edie,
Here.
Ms. Winterstrand,
Here.
Ms. Dunn,
Here.
Mr. Sutton, Mr. Frere, Ms. Shanahan, we have 9 in attendance. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public participation. Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to speak, Ms. Brittany? No. Yeah, of course. You have 3 minutes.
Well, 2.5.
Okay.
Practice. Lisa Britton, 19 Shorefront Park, Independent Party Town Chair. To the average Norwalker, understanding how local government works is dry, boring, and misunderstood. Charter revision even more so. In addition to not understanding how local government operates, the average voters don't realize that we have no check and balance, accountability, or representation for 45% of the city. Although we do have Heather Dunn here representing a lot of folks, but she's one person. P&Z policies, the budget, and double-digit tax increases do have voters' attention today. The financial crisis we find ourselves in sits with the party in charge. Our over-reliance on residential property taxes, unsustainable zoning and education policies, as well as the ECS formula, have converged. The crisis isn't going away, and the majority party owns it. We see the negative consequences of Republican single-party rule at the national level, but it's no better with local Democrats. The same gaslighting and bullying behavior of ramming policies through committees plays out in Norwalk. Since 2016, the public has asked 3 charter commissions for greater check and balance and minority party representation. 3 Dem-controlled commissions have refused, despite acknowledging Norwalk's outlier status compared to 168 towns across the state. If you think this is a Republican issue, it's not. Today, 52% of the city's voters are unaffiliated or independent. Connecticut's minority representation law states no more than a specified number of members, generally 2/3 of the total, enrolled in the same political party can serve on a particular body, whether it's elected or appointed. However, Norwalk's 5-district structure creates a loophole. You've exploited it, denying representation. You guys don't just want a majority, I mean the party. You want it all. It's very Trump-like. Connecticut has closed primaries, no term limits, restricted ballot access for third parties, and low turnout in local elections. The citizen election program, which provides clean public financing to candidates for statewide office, doesn't apply to the mayor. Special interest money from developers, lawyers, and lobbyists dominate those campaigns. Getting residents to vote no on this latest charter revision will be an easy sell after a decade of undertaxed development, overcrowded streets, and our latest school budget crisis. Finances aren't going to improve next year, or the year after that, or the year after that. Why would voters approve 4-year terms when 2 years is the only check and balance they have? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Britton. Is there anyone online who would like to speak? Please raise your hand.
Fred Wilms.
Okay, here we are. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, we can hear you, Fred. Go ahead.
Thanks, Barbara. Good evening. I'm Fred Wilms. I live at 6 Westview Lane in Norwalk, and I'm here speaking in my capacity as chair of the Republican Town Committee. In the last charter revision, the RTC did provide support for that, and it was a bipartisan charter revision, and it passed, as you know, overwhelmingly. This one seems to be less so. One of the things that I'd say our biggest ask that we had was for minority representation. I know Lisa just talked about that just now. Um, 2 years ago, our mayoral candidate, Vinny Chicatano, got 45% of the vote. And unfortunately, for that 45%, there's only one person, Heather, independent on the Republican line between the council and Board of Ed, that came as a result of that. So we believe there's a very strong imbalance there. And the way that the vast majority of towns and cities in Connecticut address that issue is through minority representation. And as you know, we're one of the very handful of few who don't have that at the council and Board of Ed level. And so we did request that it be implemented at least at the Board of Ed level. Also, as you know, the minority representation, we already have that with the boards and commissions here in town. So the absence of that is, from our perspective, certainly a negative development. We would hope that it be reconsidered. Another negative development are the 4-year terms. Again, in terms of checks and balances, these cut against that. As you probably know, back, I believe in 2016 or so, 4-year terms were proposed to charter revision, and they were pretty soundly defeated. So I'm not sure where that stands this time. On a positive note, we did ask, and it was recommended that the Common Council be expanded to 20 members, and we support that. We think that's a good thing. It provides more people, more resources, and, quite frankly, more bites at the apple in terms of candidates. So I think that's something that we would very strongly support. In conclusion, I mean, as you're aware, public approval is needed for anything that you come out with. There is a campaign, obviously, this year. And at the RTC, we will monitor the final results and then afterwards react accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilms. Is there anyone else who is in attendance online who would like to speak? I see Diane Cece.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I've tried to follow this as closely as I can, and I have to say I was a little disappointed that the public wasn't given the benefit of a bit or an easier to understand and a more comprehensive executive summary of exactly what was being proposed for the changes. The document that I had received would still leave me doing probably hours of cross-referencing what was being pointed out in the summary to finding exactly what the changes were being proposed. I think it would be easier if people understood what was being changed in layman's terms, to say this is what it is today, this is what we're proposing, and this is why. And a simple spreadsheet may have accomplished that. Anyway, what I really want to say is that I'm not sure how many people spoke before me. I hopped on late, but I also am concerned about the fact that there isn't consideration this time around for minority party representation. And I hope it makes it in the next round for all the reasons that you just heard the last speakers and other correspondence that you've had. And I also want to say, and I'm on the record of saying this, that in general, I'm a proponent of 4-year terms for the mayor, but not in the absence of term limits. And so because of whatever the restrictions are with state statutes, I guess that's unlikely to happen, or we're not allowed to make that happen. And it brings to mind a famous quote I always use, and forgive me, I always forget the author's name, but the quote is something like, people who are in power will do very little to tinker with the powers that put them there. So I don't really hold out any hope for at the state level to have any changes to municipal authorization to have term limits. And that's unfortunate because I think there's a lot of benefits to having a 4-year term. But I'm certainly not going to support that. And conversely, I'm going to oppose that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Cece. Is there anyone else online who would like to speak? Lisa Henderson.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Lisa Henderson, Apple Tree Lane. I've been following this Charter Commission closely, and I'm disappointed that the Charter Commission did not take minority party representation more seriously. I'm also against the 4-year term limits, the 4-year term for mayor and council. As Lisa stated, that will be easy to shoot down. The council still has time to do the right thing, and I hope that you do take it more seriously and send it back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson.
How are you?
I see Joe Bennett. Joe is a member of the Charter Revision Commission.
Hi there. Yes. Thank you, Barbara. And thank you, council, and everybody who's here participating in this meeting. Just to kind of, tag on to some comments today and from the last meeting and from our the public meeting. We were talking about the 5-year versus 10-year cadences for charter revision. And, I would like to, kind of emphasize that I know that we as a commission voted on the 5-year or the 10-year, but I feel as though retaining institutional knowledge is really important. Creating best practices is really important. And doing it, agreeing to 10 years versus when it's needed is really putting us in a situation where there's a crisis. And that is really not the kind of situation where you want to be making very important public decisions. And this impacts when we're talking about minority party representation, so many issues that are very relevant and critical to our democracy.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Are you finished?
I am. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else online who would like to speak? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Okay, so I will go ahead and close public participation. Wait, what? Oh, did someone else pop on? Oh, hi, John. Yes, you're welcome to speak. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. It's John Levin. I live in Norwalk at 249 Chestnut Hill Road. I was not planning on speaking. I had sent a letter earlier to council members, and I believe that Irene Dixon forwarded it to everyone. It addresses the challenges associated with council member compensation. So anyway, that's a separate issue. With respect to the 4-year term, I just want to remind the council that you have the option of breaking the charter revision referendum into multiple pieces, and you could actually put and in fact, I would recommend that you put the 4-year term for the mayor and the 4-year term for council people. If you choose to include it in the referendum, that you actually make them separate questions so that they can be addressed separately by the voters rather than bundle the whole thing together as a single thing.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Double check online. Okay, There we go. So now I will close public participation. And then we'll move on. So tonight is a workshop, a discussion. We'll start to dig into some of these items. And I'm thinking that we'll just go ahead and start from the top with the recommendation of Article 1, which was no changes. Article 2. Does anyone have would like to discuss any of these? We'll go through if we want to discuss, of course, with item 3-4A, the 4-year terms for mayor and town clerk. That will stay until the end. I am recusing myself from any discussion on the 4-year term for mayor, and so I will leave so that that discussion can happen. We can talk about common council while I'm here. So would anyone like to talk about Article 2? And just to make it clear, we did have a full presentation from the Charter Revision Commission, just for those of you who are watching in public. We did have a presentation and heard the rationale from many of the Charter Revision Commission members and have had the changes now for about a week. Okay, so moving on to, what's that? Oh, Ms. Majewski-Eichner, I'm sorry.
Right. I just wondered if you wanted to also clarify that Article 2 is mostly changes to definitions that I think are designed to enhance clarity.
Mhm.
Might be helpful to give a teensy summary so that people understand that.
Okay, yep.
Thanks.
Okay, Article 3. So 3-3, increasing the number of council members to 20 by adding one or more district member for each council district. So open for discussion. Does anyone have any comments, questions? Of course, we have Attorney Steve Mednick, who has been guiding the discussions and the Charter Revision Commission. First one and this one as well. Mr. Lopez, oh, I'm sorry,
Good.
Mr. Burnett. Who was first? I'm sorry.
That's,
Whoever was first.
my question is related to why the number 20 and not a odd number.
Excellent question.
Doesn't the mayor break the tie? The tie?
Mr. Medic can address that.
The logic to it was they simply increased the number of representatives from each of the districts, and that's how you ended up with the even number. So there was no discussion of even odd. I think there was some discussion that the United States Senate has 100 members. So, you know, it's, which is an even number. Board of Reps and the Board of Reps in Stanford is 40 members. The Board of Alders in New Haven is 30 members. So there was no real deep philosophical discussion. I think it was a simple increase of each council district to have 3 members.
So, Mr. Burnett, you'd be concerned about numerous tie
Yeah,
votes, for
my
example.
concern would be in relation to potential votes where it would be a split of 10-10, which I believe then the mayor would then break the tie. If we're looking for an odd number, why not increase the number of at-large members by 1? The at-large members are not tied to a district. So if we were looking for an odd number, if we're indeed increasing it by 1 in each district, why not increase the number of at-large members by 1? And we end up with 21. Just an idea.
An
And
idea, yep.
trying to understand the thinking of the commission. Should I wait for a response or how are we doing
Steve, did
this?
you want to chime in?
I have no response. That's really a political judgment, a political decision. There's really no legal right or wrong on that.
Well, then I pose that as a, are we creating like a parking lot of items and that we're going to go back and address?
Yes, yes. In fact, we have a tentatively scheduled meeting next week to workshop. We're not voting on anything tonight. We're
Okay, so. if we
just
put that
kicking
in the
around
parking
ideas and
lot,
asking
the number
questions.
of- The number of council members, considering possibly having an odd number.
Okay.
The other question I had relating to the number is, with the hopefully, hopefully with the idea that the stipend that the council members receive may increase. By increasing the number, that's increasing the cost to the city. Have we taken that into account? That's increased expense to the taxpayers by increasing the number of council members. Should the stipend that goes to council members is increased. So essentially, we're adding an additional expense to the city by doing this.
Definitely a concern. I think Mr. Lopez did.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I think this idea of automatic minority representation is a clever way to circumvent the electoral process. And so in the second part to that is like, the 15-member council for, let's say, a population of 100,000, I think remains well within reasonable norms for local government. I mean, in fact, there's the International City Council Meeting Association, the National League of Cities, pretty much that says municipalities within the 90,000 to 100,000 residents ranges between 7 and 15 members. So I think that, again, this is just a way to circumvent the electoral process. And I'm not in favor of expanding council participation, or unless there is something that's compelling that I can take a look at and review.
Thank you. I think Ms. Winifred.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I also have concerns about the cost to taxpayers of increasing the number of council members. And the efficiency of the process of decision-making with a smaller body might be more efficient. But I have a question for Mr. Mendick. In considering adding a council person to each district, would that impact or change anything that was done with reapportionment? In terms of distribution of one vote, one representation?
No, they're all operating within the Baker versus Carr districts that were approved. So there'd be no implication in that regard.
Okay.
Good question, though. Thank you.
Mr. C.
With the expansion, I don't really understand what it accomplishes. It doesn't accomplish what residents that come to us about the minority representation, no matter how we feel. Also within the committee, they express studies kind of show when you have the larger committees, they're less efficient. One of the arguments for it was for us, because we have such a heavy workload and kind of limit the workload. However, to be an effective council member, we're all reading up on everything that goes in committee. If we're not at the committee meetings, we're either watching them or reading them, because we all have to vote on everything, whether we're on the committee or not. So I just don't see the point of expanding it, because the workload is not. And then one other thing, other than the stipend, even if it stays the same, and I hope it does, but the construction, I mean, we're already tight.
Where are we gonna fit?
When we have everyone here, we're gonna have to.
Are you serious?
Gonna have to add some more seats. So I just think I just don't think that it accomplishes anything. That residents, I don't think have been asking for it. If anything, it's minority representation that's not addressed here.
Any other questions or comments on this? No?
The only thing I would add is the rationale that's been given for this so far is entirely political, and it doesn't appear to be a governing rationale for this. And considering this is the city charter, as in it's the foundational governing document for the city, I think that's probably the best lens in which to review all these changes. And I realize that political stuff is going to be a part of it, but considering Norwalk's population has grown, but it has not swelled to such a level in which two people can't properly represent one of our 6 districts, 5 districts. I'm not seeing the rationale to expand the council at this time, but I think that we should further discuss Councilmember Burnett's idea of, if we're going to expand it, let's make sure it's not.
Anyone who's online have any questions or comments on that? Okay. Ms. Dunn?
I do
Can I
have
just-
comments, because facts are $50 is what we get per month. 12 months. And if we added 5 people, that would be an extra $3,000. The amount of money we spend in the city that we sign off on, $3,000 is, I don't even know what percent of whatever. So that as an argument is a red herring, I really feel. The fact that we can't expand the council chambers, it would cost some money to add some extra chairs, I think is also, I don't want to use the terms that I would use, so I'm gonna be quiet. But I also want to say that I don't know how I feel about personally about the 20 members, and I don't know that in a system that it's first past the goalpost, that we will always have a majority of Democrats. So you will always have close to half of the city unrepresented. And knowing that, and it's all about numbers, I'm here as a minority party representative, but I actually am only here because I had to go to the Republicans and ask for their endorsement, which is not optimal for me. It's not something that I, in a perfect world, would be comfortable with. It's just that I knew that's the only way I could do it without, and feel good about myself. And they were willing to say, okay, we're okay that you're not a Republican, but we understand the minority representation and minority voice is important. And I think that's really a wonderful thing. So I thank them for that. Even though I don't always agree with them, or most of the time don't. But there has to be a system where the people that are disenfranchised feel like they are part of the process. And I'm here because I sat in those seats for so long, listening to stuff, making public comments that seemed like they were absolutely ignored because I wasn't in the inner circle of things. We need to figure out how to make people feel like they're part of the process in reality, regardless of what party they're from. I watched, and I will say this now, I watched the charter meetings. You have Doug Hempstead, who ran for Board of Ed. I personally think he would have been a wonderful Board of Ed member, and I think the situation that we're going through this week would probably not exist if he were sitting on the Board of Ed with an alternative point of view. He's a Republican. He does not have the numbers to get past that. When people say vote line A, and I have a lot of my friends and my husband that vote row A, and it's never going to happen with those numbers unless the unaffiliates and the independents and the Republicans get together. But I got to tell you, there's a lot of independents and unaffiliated people that are not comfortable with that situation either. So I think that they deserve a real thought process where they can be included in their voices. Somebody like Doug Hempstead could be included. We also have Rick McQuaid was on the Charter Commission. He sits on both lines. He's a Republican and also endorsed by the Democrats. He would not be where he is if he did not go outside his personal beliefs and cross party lines. And I think that I personally believe that the people that cross party lines and can be collaborative are probably some of the best people that can serve in the city. So I'd like to see us work towards that. I don't know if 20 members of council is going to do that, because you're always going to have 52% voting one way and 48% voting the other way. But I think that needs to be a discussion about how we engage people. And it's not about, the extra $50 for 5 people, Anyway, there's that.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Go ahead, Mr. C.
My reason for bringing it up, about especially with the construction, is that increasing the numbers to me doesn't fix the issue. That's the issues and the concerns that you just raised. So it's not like a political thing when I bring that up. It's just that increasing the numbers, it doesn't solve the problem. And that's what we heard in public comment from the people that spoke. So that's just my point there, where I don't see what increasing the numbers actually accomplishes. And that's where, like, I think we put it in the parking lot, like Councilmember Burnett said, and if we're gonna discuss it, I think that's what we do, but I don't think increasing the number really solves.
But,
solves the
but
problem.
most of the cities, almost all, but I guess we're one of two, I think, or three, have figured it out. So, you know, we can figure it out, and we can't, I think it's what's best for the city. Otherwise, we end up in a situation like we have nationally, where we have the slim margin of people who are just enough to take us in a different direction than I personally feel our country should be going in, but they're so disenfranchised that they pulled the needle in a direction that is not great. Sorry.
No, and thank you for your really compelling comments, Heather. I really appreciate it. And you know, I have great respect for Doug Hempstead. You know, he's my
Rick
good
McQuaid.
friend, and Rick McQuaid, of course. But you know, I think about Doug and what I learned from him the first term I was on the council. I learned so much.
He will never win again unless he gets cross endorsement by us or families or any of the other minority parties. The fact that a minority party can't believe what they want to believe and say it in a nice way, not a toxic way, they won't have a chance. And so somehow we have to provide, in my mind, we have to provide an opportunity for them to have a chance to have a voice at the table. And that is my other thing. And I just want to say, I'm still mad. I'm still upset that the charter revision, you know, got derailed because somebody made the comment, Ed Camacho, that minority representatives don't believe in diversity or inclusion, and therefore they do not deserve a seat at the table. And no one stopped that. Mr. Mednick didn't stop it. No one stopped it. And I found it insulting to Doug Hempstead. I found it insulting to everybody who was there. To John, who's a Republican, who I respect very much, you know, Rick McQuaid, very respectful Republican. They deserve a seat at the table. They absolutely do. And saying that it's undemocratic to give them a seat at the table, I think it's undemocratic to say they don't deserve a seat at the table just because we lump them together and say they don't believe in diversity and inclusion. I'm a minority representative. I'm a special ed teacher, and my life is about diversity and inclusion. So I'm still very offended and hurt by that. Sorry. That's my statement.
Thank you. Mr. Burnett.
Yes, question to Mr. Bendick. What was the intent of the Charter Commission? What was the thinking behind increasing it to 20? Was that the attempt to create minority representation?
It was I don't want to speak for them. I don't think any of them are available right now, but I think that by expanding it on the district level, I think the commission felt that it gave people who live within those districts a greater opportunity. It was just one more opportunity to campaign in a local environment on local issues where they have a shot at breaking through the party structure. And so I thought that, I believe that they thought that expanding it increased the possibility that minority party candidates could actually win at the district level. It's much more difficult at the citywide level. And I thought that I think their belief was that at the district level, you have a more competitive environment for non-majority party candidates. I believe that that is their rationale.
Why not make them number 25 or 30?
You'd have to ask them. I mean, that number didn't come up. That number didn't come up.
Mr. Lopez.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this automatic seat hands out because a political party feels that they're at a disadvantage. To me, it's really nonsensical. There is a process in place. It's campaigning, putting forward strong, competitive candidates. But just granting the seat because by justifying it because there was somewhat of a close election, I see that as undemocratic. Again, if there's a compelling reason that can be provided to me, I'm more than happy to revisit that.
Madam President, if I may.
Go ahead, please.
And I have great regard for Councilman Lopez. This is not NPR. This is just adding a seat, which is a majority rule election. The commission did not support NPR. It was simply expanding it to create a greater competitive environment, but it is not an automatic election for anybody. It's still a majority election. You can elect 3 Republicans in a Republican area or 3 Democrats in a Democratic area. I think the belief was that if you had more candidates running in a smaller neighborhood district, people might look at something other than their political party.
Thank you, Steve. So essentially more seats, more chances to win. Was that kind of the logic behind?
I think that was the rationale.
Right, right.
The discussion we heard was it was to lighten the load. It was not necessarily to bring minority representation. It's that the workload of the council, and there's so many things going on in the city, that if there were 500 people, you wouldn't have to sit on so many committees. Yes, you have to study on everything, because you vote on everything, but that you wouldn't be going to meetings 4 nights a week, that maybe you'll go to meetings, 2 nights a week, if the workload could be spread out. That's what I heard as an audience member.
Okay, I think let's move on. I mean, we've had a lot of discussion and heard a lot of perspectives. Again, we're not making decisions tonight, but yeah, so let's move on. Let's go to the second part. We're gonna, tackle some of the longer discussion ones tonight. And considering we're, spending a good amount of time on this, and this meeting does need to end for the 7 o'clock finance meeting. So we want to finish up at about 6, certainly by 6:55. I'm going to recommend now that our meeting on the 18th, which we will need clearly, we ask the community services meeting to go at 7:30, to push it to 7:30. So I'm going to recommend that. And if we have to add another one, we add another one. We have time to do that. So, okay. So on 3-4A1, talking about the 4-year term for the Common Council following the 2031 election. Questions, comments? From my perspective, this is a tough one. There's kind of in a way you can't talk about one without the other, but for Common Council, for the 2-year term, it does provide, from my perspective, that opportunity for, other people to run. But yet, I think we all have experienced what it takes to run every 2 years. So, let's get some perspectives and hash it out. Ms. Wachowski-Eichner.
Thank you, President Smith. I wanted to ask Mr. Mednick, I am very intrigued by the setup here, and I actually think it makes a lot of sense, but I did just want to make sure I was fully understanding. So the idea is that the council terms would be 4 years, but they would be offset to the mayoral election. So the mayoral election would be once every 4 years. The council elections would be 2 years into the mayor's term, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and with the Board of Education, is that moving? So right now it's in similar set, offset, there's 5 and 2. Is that staying so that 5 of them would run with the mayor and 4 of them would run with the council?
That is correct.
Okay. And could you maybe just say a few words about, I see some interesting logic to it, but I'm curious, just if you could quickly summarize the thinking of the commission in recommending that sort of offset.
Well, I believe that the rationale for that is the accountability element of it. One of the arguments against a 4-year term for mayor is that you have no way to hold a mayor accountable when there is no recall in the state of Connecticut. Removal is very difficult in the state of Connecticut as well. And the idea of having the council in an alternate election cycle serves two purposes. One is it provides the voters with an opportunity to give a vote of no confidence, in effect. If you have a Democratic mayor or Republican mayor and they elect a substantial majority from the other party, obviously it would have impact on the mayor's ability to govern, and it sends a message to the mayor. The other issue is having the council members in the alternate cycle, again, to the issue of political competitiveness, takes the mayoral candidate of both parties off the top of the ticket for the legislative body, gives the legislative body more independence, and allows for a more competitive environment on the local level, again, in the districts. It's kind of consistent with the theory of expanding it to 3 members. I'm not advocating, but I think that it's a consistent philosophy of having these people run on local issues in the by-election when the mayor's not on the ticket. So the idea was principally as an offset to the mayor, as an ability to hold the mayor accountable. At the same time, I think they believed it allowed for a more competitive political environment in a lower turnout election where the local issues might have more of an interplay with the political environment. So those would be the two rationales as I understand them.
Thank you, Mr. Mennick. Helpful. And I have to say that I really appreciate the structure and I'm very supportive of it. I think that it is very clear to me that we need longer to get things accomplished. It is, in essence, we function at this point in sort of an 18-month cycle at best, maybe more like 15 or 16 months. And so I'm very supportive of the 4 years, but I think the offset is a clever way of addressing some of the downsides of that. And so I really appreciate the commission with this approach. Sorry, and last thing I will say is you are going to hear from me a lot tonight. The increased independence of this body is my #1 priority, and I also appreciate the ways in which it supports that.
Can you repeat that, Nora? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Sorry, the increased independence of the council is my #1 priority, the thing I most think needs to be addressed in this charter. And so I also appreciate the ways in which that furthers this objective.
Sorry, I just didn't hear. Thank you. Any other thoughts on the 4-year term for?
Yeah, no, I think
council?
to Nora's point, I think that, desynchronizing the mayor and the council does provide council members, with opposing views, let's say like equivalent to like a midterm, right? So I think there is a huge advantage to that. So yeah, that's something that's should be considered, yeah, for sure.
Anyone else?
That's a good question.
Sure.
So the idea is to have the council voted on the off years and the mayor with the national?
No. They'd all be municipal election years. They're on odd numbered cycles. They're municipal cycles.
Okay. So the mayoral race would be in off years and the council be on mid years.
So like say like the mayor's running this year, in 2 years, the council will be running.
For the
But you're voting on the president of the United States at the same time with the mayor or with?
No.
It's always on.
So it's gonna be,
The
it's gonna be
mayor-
23, 25, 27.
Oh, okay.
So it's never gonna be on the evenings.
And are there other towns that do it that way? And what is their, does it decrease, how does it affect their voter turnout?
There are towns that have retained the 2-year term for council. I don't know of any towns that have gone with the 4-year term in a split cycle, but they have done it in alternate cycles. And it's lower turnout. When you don't have the mayor at the top of the ticket, you're going to have lower turnout. Hartford experimented with Board of Education elections in the by-election because the mayor and the council all run in the same cycle. And they found that there were very, very low turnouts involved in those situations. But in Hamden, where you have a 2-year term for council, it's just going into effect because the 4-year term will take effect this November, but there's still a 2-year term for the council in Hamden. So there's no other town that's done the 4-4, but the theory again was that in the off cycle, it gives the council some ability to serve as an accountability measure for the mayor.
Other comments or thoughts? No. You know what, if you don't mind, let's just look at 34-A1. And then I will leave the chambers and you can take up a 4-year term for mayor.
Can we?
Yes.
Maybe the mayor, just because of the time, maybe we just talk about that at the next meeting.
The mayor thing?
Because it's the mayor, I mean, that's probably gonna take more time than
Yeah, you
9
can't,
minutes.
probably can't squeeze that in. That's it. We can start it. Robert said 3-4.
Then let's skip 3-4 and then go ahead and start with the mayoral term because it makes sense to be talking about it now. And we can pick it up and then I can come in.
Okay.
Yeah. On the 18th, it can start and then I can come in. And so, yes, I will recuse myself now and leave the chambers. And Josh, you will pick up the meeting and adjourn.
Yes, Madam President.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Do this. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, it's 6:47 PM. Council President Smith has recused herself for the duration of the meeting. 3-4.A1, 4-year terms for the mayor and town clerk following the 2029 election, and for the common council following the 2031 election. I assume we'd like to discuss this, so who would like to go first? Councilmember Lopez. And then Councilmember Jessica.
My first thoughts are that, I think that longer terms would signal some type of continuity. In the sense that, it'll help to attract top talent, given in comparison to 2 years to 4 years, allows the mayor to kind of see his policy through. So I think there is, and also it really does kind of sort of, well, in fact, it does. Align with the executive's role, looking for stability to execute, like I just said, the long-term plans. So that's just my thinking. And Steve, or Mr. Mednick, in your experience, I know we had a discussion with Luke Brennan from Hartford. He did say that he encountered a lot of problems in attracting, talent because of the 2-4 year dynamic. As far as you recall, have you seen other cases similar to that, like some of those same challenges?
Well, Hartford has a 4-year cycle for the council as well as the mayor, and they run together. So I've not seen that in many communities. Waterbury has a 4-2, and I am not aware of, I forgot about that a moment ago, I'm not aware of any recruitment issues in Waterbury. They went to a district system. They have NPR also, but they went to a district system, and I don't think they have a problem recruiting in either party or any of the parties in Waterbury. So I've not seen that become an issue.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Nadjelski.
Sorry, Councilmember Lopez, just to clarify, were you referring to candidate recruitment or staff recruitment for the city services?
Staff recruitment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I did not understand that. Yes.
Sorry, I should have elaborated, but yeah, staff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that is the strongest, one of the strongest and most compelling arguments that exists. And that's why Luke would have made such an argument, although he's always had a 4-year term. We've had a 4-year term in Hartford since the early part of the 21st century, but it's it's a significant argument in favor of a 4-year term for mayor.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Justin, for the clarification.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman.
No worries. No, I wanted to clarify that because I do think that that is a significant part of my support for a 4-year term. And also, as I said, I mean, the reality, having now sat in this chamber for about 4 years, you know, it is simply difficult to get much done, you know, from the election until January, nothing happens, right? From, you know, about this time of year until November again in the 2nd-year term, not much happens. And for legitimate reasons. You know, I myself raised this question in a committee meeting yesterday, right? Are we going to move forward a major policy while we don't really know who's going to be, you know, serving as mayor in 6 months? You know, so I think that there are real challenges in trying to operate a city, particularly a city you know, in the context that we all live in now of things that are moving fast with complex, you know, economic issues, with complex social issues. I think it's very important to have someone really have the time and space to, you know, implement the role. I will acknowledge a comment from one of the speakers regarding term limits. I also think it is, you know, again, as we've discussed, Connecticut does not allow them. I also think that moving to the 4-year term, I hope may help with our instinctive reaction as Americans that you serve 2 4-year terms, right? That is the way it is. There is, I think, an inclination in all of our part to be skeptical of politicians who run for more than 2 4-year terms. And I think that that also may help us, even if we cannot enforce it, culturally, we have a norm around it. And I would love to see the 2-year, 4-year terms perhaps help us reach that norm, you know, if not in rule, in practice. So more reasons from my perspective.
Any other members want to say their piece? Councilmember Seed.
I just not really a comment on this per se, but I think that we do have to kind of read the room or read our city and look at the times that we are in. I mean, we could put things forward because we think they're a good idea, but they still have to get approved by the people. And I think that we just need to be mindful of that, about the things that we put forward. Right now, we're in a turbulent time in our city. And if this is the inclination of what the summer's going to be like, it's going to be a little crazy. And I just think that we need to be cognizant of that because with the majority rule that we do have currently, I just don't know if the appetite's gonna be there from the people. And I think that we just need to be aware of that, because even though I do support the 4-year mayor term and on the fence about the council, but I just think that the people might not have the appetite right now to vote for that. And I think that we should be thinking about that, not saying that that should stop us from doing what we think is right or doing what we think is good, but also why put something out in front of people that's not gonna pass and the appetite's not there because of the current climate. And I think we just need to, as leaders, read the room or read our city to see what people are going through. Right now, it's like it's challenging time. We have the Board of Ed prices, but people's taxes are going up double digits. Pricing increases that don't have anything to do with us, but we just need to see where our people are coming from, that we represent, because we put something in front of them that there's no appetite for right now, or it seems self-serving in a way, could be not good for our people.
I just want to, I'm sorry, Councilmember Burnett, and then I want to ask a couple
Yes,
questions.
my question to Mr. Magnet, based upon the comments from during public participation from Mr. Levin, as it relates to uncoupling these items for vote, is that in fact a protocol, a way forward that we could possibly implement?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Councilman Burnett. Always a pleasure hearing your voice and seeing you. You can do multiple questions. I don't recommend. What's that? I don't recommend that you do a question on every individual item. Usually, I recommend an omnibus question, and then what you try to do is segregate out the more controversial issues from time to time. Now, there's also a theory that you put the controversial questions in the body and you roll the dice and try to get the whole thing through. And I'll tell you, a couple of my communities did that against my advice, but they won. In fact, the 4-year term in both New Haven and Hamden a year ago, both New Haven, I think it lost 10 years ago or 12 years ago, but they put it in the one question and they won. And it was against my advice, but in both towns, there was not a lot of opposition. So
Yeah.
yes, you can do multiple questions.
I would note, and I wholeheartedly, I think Councilmember Burnett asked the exact right question, because, and to John Levin's credit, for bringing it up. But I do think that as we think about the 4-year term, I think about every city that's our size. Steve can tell me if I'm wrong, but pretty much every city that's our size operates on a 4-year term. And the truth of the matter is, it is paramount, I think, in order to be able to recruit and keep top-tier staff to work for the city, because if the mayor's changing every so often, it can provide a real monkey wrench in the process. I take what Councilmember Seed into account about saying that we need to read the room. But also, I think we're, the Charter Revision Commission has done its process. It's come to us with a series of recommendations that obviously we're taking seriously because we're doing these workshops and it's our job to take this seriously. But I do think that as a city like Norwalk that is growing, I find it hard to think that we won't be ending up at a 4-year term at some point. I would note that, and I think this is something we need to repeat, the 4-year term would be following the 2029 election. So there would be there'd be one election where it's still a 2-year term, and then the 2029 election, in which then it would be a 4-year term. There would be 4 years of notice for people. And look, if they disagree and they want the 2-year term, that's why I think the reason for uncoupling makes sense, and give them the opportunity to take that vote. But the way I see it right now, I think that's the natural progression. I think that we've been able, in large part, to retain top-tier staff and been able to move the initiatives forward because, frankly, as a political matter, Mayor Rilling has been a stable and reliable electoral winner. And, that just may not always be the case. And so I think we need to give administrations in the future the opportunity to govern. So I realize I've gone over the 6:55 mark. Sorry.
I agree with Councilmember Snead in that, this may not be the right time, or the climate may not be good for this item to come forward. But I'll just close by saying change is never comfortable. And when are we going to get to a point where we can say, oh, we're in a comfortable state, so let's raise the idea of changing term limits? It's just not going to happen. So, we sitting in these chairs currently have to take some courageous steps. And if we feel as a group that we should move this forward, we should, and see where it lands. But I don't know how much more we can do to create a comfortable environment where bringing something forward, we could predict the outcome, because it's constantly changing. It's constantly changing. So how do we get to a point of being comfortable about bringing this forward?
Heather, last word, really quick.
So I will comment on that, and I understand why you don't, because you're in this bubble, right? I'm in the outer bubble. I think that minority representation is really important, as you know, but I also think that linked with the 4-year term would make people understand that there are options and it's not going to be all one way or the other. You're looking at what's going on nationally. We still got another 3.5 years of what's going on. And I think that if you put it in for this election, I think people are going to be scared. And I would like to not see all this work be torpedoed, because it is a standalone thing without the minority representation in it. But I think that I personally think that if you linked it with a 4-year term, it would probably be more palatable for people.
You have a
Really
motion?
sorry. And last word, and I do believe that people do want us to be courageous, and I think that that's what we're here to do. But I think people want us to create, like, courageously, like, fix the crisis that's going on in the city and find different revenue sources for us so that we don't keep having these budget things. That's what the people want right now. And we can't say, oh, it's our friends that's down the hall in the BOE. We have to own it as the leaders of the city. And I think that's what we should be putting our focus for, is being courageous and really finding the solutions to that. And I understand a 4-year term, but I think that that's where our focus is, to make us courageous, is fixing these issues that the people care about. Because if not, I just don't see this passing, because I just don't see it.
I know, so now it is 7:01.
Can I say something else though to that point?
Last one, you are the absolute last.
Okay, so, and I'm gonna piggyback on that issue, because I think that a large part of the problem here, right, is that the budgetary authority does not sit with the elected officials, right? So, you know, to your point, Councilmember Seed, if people would like to see more accountability for our budget, then they need to have people that they elect be responsible for that budget. So, you know, the fundamental issue here, to my mind, is the lack of independence of this body. It is the lack of fiscal authority of this body. So, you know, yeah, I recognize we're at time, but that's a subject that needs to be discussed, in my opinion, at much more length, because to my mind, that is the fundamental issue that we're grappling with here.
And we will make sure, I feel like I'm like Johnny Carson right now. Next episode, I promise we will discuss that. Our next workshop is on June 18th. We will make sure that's going to be noticed, and we've already sort of published our schedule on this. Someone give me a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
There we go. All in favor? All right. Thank you all. Stay
Night, everyone.
tuned for the
Good night.
finance meeting.
Bye.